Okay, 8th graders 9-2, page 493. We have some figures. We're going to go over more congruence and corresponding parts. This is important when you get into high school geometry because you're going to need to be able to line up the line segments with the corresponding line segments, whatever's congruent or similar. This is good for architecture, design, art. Did I say graphic design? I think I did. All the same stuff we kind of been talking about. It's also important if you're doing stuff in your own home one day when you're older. Getting congruent cupboards is pretty important when you're getting new kitchen cabinets or the like. So here we have two figures, and we can tell they're congruent. How can we tell they're congruent? Well, our eyeballs say, yeah, they look pretty similar, right? So that's the first clue. Then we can say, all right, they both have 90-degree angles. Cool. They both have an angle that is the same. So you can see angle A is congruent to angle D. And these lines right here, these side ones, the 1, the 2, and the 3, those will show you what it lines up to. So line segment DE is going to match up with AB. They both have one line through it. EF is going to match up with BC because they both have the two lines through it. Notice I started with E, so then I start with B. E was on the one by the right angle, and B is also. So I said EF, so I would say BC. I would not say it the other way around. DF is congruent to AC because of those three lines there. So this is the first line they're talking about, the second and the third. You could have changed it. I mean, they could have said this was 1 and this was 3 and this was 2. It doesn't matter. Over here, this is kind of important. In the figure, the two triangles are congruent because triangle DEF is the image of triangle ABC reflected across line M. So it's like a mirror was here. The parts of the congruent figures that match or correspond, so another word for correspond or match, are called corresponding parts. To indicate that the sides are congruent, an equal number of tick marks is drawn on the corresponding sides. To show that angles are congruent, an equal number of arcs is drawn on the corresponding angles. The notation triangle ABC is this symbol to triangle DEF is read triangle ABC. Don't just say ABC, say triangle ABC when you see that triangle figure. Is congruent. This symbol means congruent to triangle DEF. So to write that, you would do a tilde and two lines underneath like an equal sign. If two figures are congruent, their corresponding sides are congruent and their corresponding angles are congruent. Basically, to be congruent, to match perfectly, they need to have everything the same, whether it's reflected or translated or not. It just needs to be able to match up, okay? So here's how you can write this. This is triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. The congruent angles. Angle A is congruent to angle D. Yep, they have corresponding arcs. Angle B is congruent to angle E. See, they have a corresponding right angle arc. Angle C is congruent to angle F. Notice they have two there, two there. If this wasn't a right triangle, this would have like 3 corresponding arcs then. Congruent sides. Now notice instead of the angle symbol, they put a line. So you would say segment AB or line segment AB is congruent to segment DE. So AB is congruent to DE. Notice how I started with the A, so I have to start with the corresponding angle there, the corresponding point. Line segment BC is congruent to line segment EF. BC starts here, so I have to start with EF. I can't go the other way around. And then line segment CA is congruent to line segment FD. CA, FD. All right. It's a little bit wordy here. But here, how do you figure this out? the congruent statements. So write a congruent statements for the corresponding parts in the triangle shown. So what corresponds with what? Line segment JK corresponds to which one? Well, we look for the ticks. There's one line there. So which one has one line? This one. Now, what do? Do I do GH or HG? So you have to kind of look closely and see, is it flipped or what? So look at the angles. Angles will help. Oh, G's angle matches J's angle, and H's matches K's. They have 3, and these ones have 1. So it started with the letter J. So start with the one that corresponds to J. Which one has 1 arc? G does. That's how we know. So it's G, H. Don't forget to put a line over it. KL, line segment KL corresponds to, so KL, that's the one with 3. They started with K, so which angle corresponds with K's 3? H does. H, I. Hi. Wonder if they did that on purpose. Line segment LJ corresponds to, which one is it, GI or IG? We know it's this line because of the 2 ticks and the 2 ticks. But which one do we start with? Well, they start with L, so we would start with whatever corresponds with L. Does L has 2 arcs? Which one has 2 arcs? I has 2 arcs, so we have to start with I because I has 2 arcs, L has 2 arcs. They correspond to one another. IG, like Instagram. Oh, look, I'm youthful. Haha. Okay, if there comes a time when you need to write a congruent statement and they don't start it off for you, you can pick whatever one you want, just make sure it corresponds properly. So over here, they give you the ones to start with 2. Just like they did here, but you may have a time in your geometric life where they just say, tell which ones are congruent to each other. And you're going to have to figure it out and make it line up. For right now, it's just kind of an intro. Angle J corresponds to angle, which one has the 1 arc? G. So it's pretty simple. Angle L corresponds to angle I because they have the 2 arcs. Angle K corresponds to angle H. All right, so the congruent statements for the corresponding angles are angle J is congruent to angle G, angle L is congruent to angle I. So if they want a congruent statement for sides, you would put it like this. If they want a congruent statement for angles, you would put it like that. Over here, same thing. This is for congruent angles. This is for congruent line segments. AB is corresponding. So there's 4 lines there, 4 ticks. So this one has 4 ticks. What do we start with? A has 1 arc. M has 1 arc. A started first, so we'd go M. And then B is next, so N would be next, okay? Angle A corresponds to angle M. All right. BK corresponds to NO. No. Angle B corresponds to angle, see the angle, N. Okay. Notice, just follow the arcs and the ticks that match. That's the main thing. Okay, practice a few problems on it, and good luck.